All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Nathan Mars, and I'm the tech lead of Grafana's data visualization squad. I'm really excited to be here in Amsterdam to talk about a subject that I've been really interested in, how recent advancements in AI and the rise of large language models might fundamentally change how we approach observability. So here at Grafana, we've been asking what the future of observability might look like. Who here has also wondered the same? A couple people in the audience. And who here has wondered how advancements in AI and LLMs might shape our everyday lives? A couple more people. And finally, who here has wondered how much longer our jobs will be safe from the iron grasp of robots? It's definitely something I'm worried about at night. So today we're going to be looking at how Grafana has been embracing this future, and also we'll end today's talk with how you, yes you, can directly contribute to and mold the future of observability. So we're going to begin with Grafana Labs' approach to how we've integrated machine learning and artificial intelligence with observability. But first, what is observability, and what problems are we trying to solve? There's many different ways of defining observability, and this quote from our director of community sums it up nicely. Observability is about enabling humans to understand complex systems, and we need to understand them, as we need to operate them. So what does it take for humans to understand and operate these systems? I'll go over two different aspects. The first is deep domain knowledge. You need to understand how your system works, how its dependencies work, and where its boundaries are. This is not an easy task. As new technologies emerge, the modern stack is getting more and more complex, and there's more and more layers of abstraction. And it's not just about knowing your service, it's also keeping up with this new underlying tech. Another consideration is that there's more data than ever before. There's more metrics, logs, traces, and profiles to keep up with, and this can really lead to an information overload. And even if you have this deep domain knowledge, we're in a team sport here. Maintaining a shared understanding between people leaving and people joining your team is yet another challenge we face. Next, we have toil, and this is not just work I don't like to do. It's work that's tied to running a healthy service. And this scales as the service grows. It tends to be repetitive and reactive. Examples can include like restarting a stuck pod or scaling up your deployment. And they're manual tasks that can take up a lot of your time. So what's the role of machine learning and AI in all of this? We've defined this role as minimizing both toil and the need for deep domain knowledge. This enables us to understand complex systems more efficiently and effectively. And we want to emphasize here that this is still human. Like, we still expect humans to be the driver of these workflows. We just want to use these tools of AI and ML to help humans make things less complicated. So let's take a brief look how we're integrating machine learning to achieve this goal today. So we're doing things like adaptive alerting, where you don't need to worry about setting static thresholds. We can just use the thresholds that we've learned from historical data instead of you having to worry which ones you should set. Or with Grafana Sift, which is pictured here, where we can automate some of the routine parts of incident investigation. So things like Matt just mentioned, like surfacing error log patterns, or uncovering a recent deployment that might be a cause of an incident. We've already seen these features been really helpful to engineers to have a springboard when they go to debug issues. And these features are already available as part of Grafana Cloud as part of the free tier. So this is an AI talk, so you're probably expecting to hear this next phrase. It's an elephant in the room. So we've all heard of large language models at this point, and in 2024, they've continued to improve. And there's widely available low-cost large language model APIs. What's interesting about large language models is that they kind of serve as this translation layer between humans and machines, which enables a whole host of new experiences. We've seen LLMs closing two gaps, key trends, closing gaps in two different areas. So you know what you want to do, but you don't know how to do it. So let's say you have a SQL database and you want to get data out of it, but you don't know SQL. Or in this case of over here, you know how to do it, and it takes a lot of effort, so summarizing a document. What's key here is that LLMs serve as a natural language, have natural language as their interface, which makes it more accessible to everyone. You don't have to know how to code. You just have to know how to speak a language. These two gaps actually map nicely to the two challenges in observability that we just mentioned before. So LLMs kind of present this kind of big, scary, exciting opportunity. So we've kind of been given this ChatGPT hammer, and it's kind of a choose-your-own-adventure, like what hammers can we hit, or what nails can we hit, not hammers with a hammer. Okay. It's a bit of a fickle hammer, though. It's sometimes great, sometimes not. It can be unreliable, it can hallucinate. But in some cases, we've managed to knock some sense into this hammer. And the more that we've learned about this tool, the more we realize the value that it could have. And we want to enable everyone to build with generative AI throughout Grafana. So what's Grafana's approach to generative AI? So Grafana Labs has always taken a unique approach to projects and products. For open source, we've developed in the open since the beginning of our generative AI journey. For Big Tent, we empower you to use whatever tools you like, no vendor lock-ins. And for defaulting to transparency, we have opened up datasets, prompts, and code so you can see exactly what's going on in the context of the LLM. So we've built in generative AI support directly into Grafana open source, not just cloud or enterprise. Anyone can add generative AI features into Grafana via plugins, pull requests, feature requests, which I'll actually demo later. And generative AI features are fully opt-in, and they're managed and customized all from one place with our LLM plugin. We've also released some open source libraries and examples to give the community a head start, and we can't wait to see what the community comes up with. For Big Tent, we're making Grafana work for you regardless of your choice of tech. For generative AI, this looks like you can actually choose your LLM. For now, we just have OpenAI and Azure manage OpenAI, but we're planning on adding more LLMs in the future, including self-hosted options. Likewise, you can choose the vector database. You can use our built-in solution, or you can contribute open source contributions for more. And a key point here is that we want to make the AI experience equal across all data sources, not just Prometheus and Loki, but also for Influx, Elastic, and Postgres. Like, we want to meet with the community where it's at and not just have favorite children. Finally, for the final value of transparency here, we kind of want to turn the black box of LLMs into kind of a glass box. What this means is we have open prompts, which means you can see the exact inputs going into the LLM from the open source code, which we'll actually see in a minute here. We've also shared evaluation and benchmark results on the performance of these features over time and over model changes. And we're planning on eventually releasing open data sets to help you get started quickly on building new features, so things like public dashboards or queries from Kubernetes integration. So let's take a look at 3 generative AI features that we've built so far. So this first one is the Dashboard Assistant. This one's pretty close to my heart, as I was on the team that helped build this out, and I learned a ton doing it. In this case, we see that generative AI is being used as a helper to add titles and descriptions to panels and dashboards. This is a great example of a small assist that can reduce toil and quickly add real value. This is not a game changer, but it helps engineers with small hurdles and can easily make dashboards more robust and consumable. So we're actually look at some code here. So here's a little behind-the-scenes look at the Dashboard Assistant. So here at Grafana, we really do build in the open. Like, this code is open source and inside the Grafana repo, which is one of my favorite aspects of working at Grafana, is all the code is public. Here, we're looking at the prompt we're providing the LLM to generate a panel title. Here, you can see the panel JSON and dashboard metadata. We're providing that as helpful context to help drive reasonable answers. So next, we can use LLMs to jumpstart more challenging tasks, like writing PromptQL. Here we have a built-in vector model based on thousands of open source PromptQL queries. We can use that model alongside an LLM to allow users to write queries more quickly. We kind of see this. It wrote a query for us. So let's take a closer look inside the Query Advisor. First, we start with the system prompt. And what does system mean in this context? Well, it's part of 3 different roles in OpenAI's Chat API. There's system, user, and assistant. System provides high-level instructions and guidelines. The user presents the queries or prompts, and assistant is the LLM's response. So here in the Query Advisor systems prompt case, try saying that 5 times fast, we are providing an explicit policy, not just to make up label names. As you can imagine, without that line, had liberal license to do so before. Okay, and now we're going to look at the user persona prompt. In a nutshell, we're asking the LLM to pick and choose relevant PromQL templates found via semantic search based on the context of the user's input. And I want to zoom in a little bit further on how we retrieve these PromQL templates from the VectorDB. So here we can actually see the Grafana's LLM plugin at work. The PromQL templates are stored in a vector database filled with thousands of open source PromQL queries. We then use the LLM plugin to semantically search, and in this case, return the top 5 results based on the user's input. Then here in the bottom right code block, we pass those results as part of the user persona prompt, and then let the LLM, the natural large language model, decide which templates are a best fit for the user's intent. And finally, the final feature I want to cover today is FlameGraph AI. This is something that came out recently. I want to give a huge shout out to Ryan Perry and team on their great work on this feature. This feature helps you understand your FlameGraph profiling data. What's a FlameGraph? Well, FlameGraphs provide a convenient way to visualize performance data, but not everyone knows how to read them or get value from them. FlameGraph AI closes this gap and makes FlameGraphs more accessible to a wider audience. And it does this by highlighting performance bottlenecks, providing possible root causes, and even includes how you might resolve these issues. So far, we've seen the opportunity with generative AI is not necessarily in building out a single super app. Instead, it's many, many small improvements across the workflow that together can make a big difference. We like to call this delight by 1,000 flowers. And we've covered some of what we built, and I want to move on now to what you can build. And maybe you can phrase this as what flowers you might be able to plant. So now we get to the fun part, how you can help build the future of observability. Let's uncover what the intersection of LLMs and observability might look like. We can simplify this down as an equation. So LLMs plus Grafana plus scenes equals question mark. The goal for the remainder of this talk is to solve this equation. Sorry if you thought math class was over. So let's simplify. Hopefully we all know what Grafana is, so we can check that off. Okay, great. We're one step closer to solving this equation. Now let's move on to scenes. So Grafana Scenes is a front-end library that allows you to effortlessly extend Grafana. With Scenes, you can build dynamic dashboarding experiences directly in apps with support for data querying and transformations, time range and variable management, panels and data visualizations, as well as the ability to make drill-down experiences, as we'll see in a demo in a minute. All right, so we've got one piece left. Unfortunately, given the time of this talk, LLMs will have to remain a bit of a black box, but at a super high level, you can just think of them as an intelligent next word generator, and they're specialized and trained to be a helpful assistant to you. All right, so with LLMs waved away, let's solve this equation together in a live demo. This is where things can get interesting, especially with an LLM. Alrighty, so today we're going to be taking a look at a Grafana Scenes app template that we have that kind of includes some examples of basic scene, of scene with tabs, a drill down experience, and something that we've added recently, or I added for this demo, which is integrating with LLM app, LLM plugin. So here is like the basic template. We have this basic app page with tabs. You can kind of see we have support for panels and support for time ranges. And we actually can support multiple different time ranges on the same page, something that was not possible before. More interestingly here, we have a drill down example where we can see here, if I click on seller, this is just a demo panel, right, showing the temperature of different rooms in your house. We can see here we actually have a drill down experience built into the app where we can kind of see the seller's temperature and humidity. And we can see it's actually supported in the navigation system. We're seeing seller overview here. It's actually coming up here inside of the URL as well. What this allows for is like some type of deep linking. So let's say we just want to go directly to the seller's humidity overview. we actually can link directly to that, and this really enables a ton of really powerful flows. But today, we're here to talk about AI and LLMs. So what we have here is this new page with LLM integration. So real quickly, I want to show you the LLM plugin that we have released. This is available in open source, and we can see here that you can select your provider. Right now, it's only OpenAI or Azure OpenAI, but we're planning on adding more support for others later, as well as add your OpenAI key. Importantly here, I want to call out that there's a button here, a big button, to disable all LLM features in Grafana. So we really want to give you the power and control to enable or disable these features as you like. Finally, we also have vector settings here, which we're not going to be messing with today, to configure your vector database to enable things like semantic search, as shown in the PromQL assistant. All right, so let's start talking to the LLM. So this first example is really just kind of a wrapper around ChatGPT, is how to describe it. It's basically this example of how we can integrate the LLM plugin directly into a Grafana Scenes app. And so if I ask, what is 10 times 10? If I can type, we'll see what it says. And it's going to give me kind of a snarky answer because we're telling it to be actually a cynical assistant in the system prompt. So it's kind of rude. Your results may vary, but yeah, it's kind of rude to me. That's fine. We'll move on. 1 second, I need to grab my code window. It's a real demo. Alrighty, so showing a little bit of code here, but really just to get some questions asked. What I want to kind of point out here real fast is this is kind of a basic implementation of a scene object, and this is like the basic LLM integration page that we're kind of seeing on the other page. And what I want to point out here is the kind of flexibility of scenes. This object that we're rendering is a scene React object, which allows me to kind of throw in any React component that I want, which is what this whole UI is. So now I'm going to ask it, if you had to guess a number to define the meaning of life, what would it be and why? And we can see it's streaming in, and the number is 42, based off Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I want to point out that this stream is kind of interesting. Like the OpenAI API has a streaming capability, as well as a just chat completions capability. And what we found, the streaming makes a lot of sense when you're generating small to medium amounts of text that the user can actually see. Now let's see the functionality of just not using the stream capability. So you can see it's just loading and then just loads a request in. And for this is pretty much what we use for everything else. If there's like a huge amount of text you're trying to generate, it doesn't really make sense to show that to the user as it can be distracting. Or sometimes, a lot of times, you're having kind of discussions internally with the LLM that are not even user-facing, so you don't need to do a stream. You can show a little bit of that in code here. So this first thing that's highlighted is a stream, and we can see that this LLMs is our LLM plugin, and we're connecting to the OpenAI API, which is stream chat completions. Here we're passing in the model, which is 3.5, and the messages. In this case, the system and user, and you can see the system message is you are a cynical assistant, which is why it paraded me for asking what 10 times 10 is. And then up here, we can just see the only difference here is instead of stream chat completions, it says chat completions. And that's the use case that we use most often. All right, so this is cool. Maybe if you have like a bird observability app, you could ask it, like, what does this bird do? Or where does this bird live? If you have ChatGPT in there, but this is not as interesting as it could be. So I want to pose a question. What if you could have a conversation with your dashboard, with your app, with your data? And would that be a potential future of observability? Maybe, maybe not. So don't worry about that code below, super hacky. But we're going to ask a couple questions to this and see what we can do. So in this context, let's just say I have a Scenes app where I'm kind of viewing all the different servers in one place for my company. And I'm only seeing 5 here, so I actually want to see 20. So fingers crossed on this one. OK. It shows me now 20. I'm going to refresh this data. It's kind of dummy data until I get a result I want. OK. So let's say I hand this off to someone, and they don't really have context on what they're looking at. Like, what does this all mean? What we can do is say, explain what this data that's being displayed is. And it tells me its performance metrics of different servers over time. And that understanding this data helps optimize the server infrastructure and ensure its reliability and efficiency. Sounds pretty accurate. This could probably be improved with some prompt engineering, but it's on a pretty right track for just giving high-level context. So now let's say I'm looking at this chart, and I notice that my SQL 4 server is a little higher than normal. So I'm going to focus in on that one. And let's say I want to figure out, based on historical data, is this normal for this server? Like, do I need to be alarmed by this? Do I need to investigate? So we're just going to ask. And fingers crossed on this one. OK, so it worked. Look at that. OK, so we can see here the comparison data is lower, substantially lower, actually, than this week's data. So this is probably something I want to look more into and try to dive more into, maybe through this interface. Although this is the end of the demo, so that's where we're going to be stopping today. So I want to call out that this code is actually in a PR that's going to be added to the Scenes app template. So when you install this template with one command and start playing around with this yourself locally, you can really start diving into it and be able to play around with this. And I'm going to move back here. And I'll have a QR code, whoops, at the end of the slides to show you it's a QR code to get to that PR, so you can see the code. So we did it. It turns out that the answer to the equation, by the way, is 42, the meaning of life. And in summary, at Grafana Labs, we've been diving into the potential of AI and ML, and more recently, generative AI to transform observability as we know it. And we invite you all to dive in with us. And we can't wait to see what magical and delightful experiences that you build. So thank you all for your time today.